On Fanalysis, we take in-depth analytics used in fantasy football and combine them with the latest betting trends data to find you the sharpest angles. And for that, we turn to a sports investment analyst from Pickswise, Jared Smith. Jared, good to see you once again. Let's start things off with one of your top plays of the week. The Chargers are getting 6.5 in Kansas City. Both of these teams suffered heartbreaking losses this last week. So the big question is, are the Chiefs a TD better than the Chargers?
At this stage, I don't think so. And the Chiefs struggles against the spread. Now, the Chiefs are winning a lot of these games, so I don't want you to think that I'm calling the Chiefs a mediocre team or even a below mediocre team. But against the spread, they're a really bad team. They're 2-11 against the spread in their last 13 games. That includes this season, dating back to the postseason, and in the final, I believe, either 8 or 9 weeks of the regular season. The irony is this bad streak against the number started the week after the Chiefs pounded the Jets in that Lev Bell revenge game. So the Jets almost kind of spurned them into this negative slide. But I think when you look at the Chiefs roster, this is what we're hearing from a lot of the experts, Steve. The top 4 guys on the Chiefs roster are very good, the best in the league. Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey, and then on the defensive side, Chris Jones. But after that, there's a gap in this roster between those top 4 guys and the rest of the starting, 22. Right. On the Chargers side, Justin Herbert's great. They've got some weapons on offense, but they're a more balanced team. So on paper, I kind of think these teams are a little more even than, let's say, a 7-point spread indicates. Throw in the fact that Justin Herbert, I know how good Patrick Mahomes is. Justin Herbert has looked just as good as well. And I think you've got the makings of one of those back and forth classics. I'll take the points here with LAC.
And this stat, you might actually be encouraged to take the money line on this, because while both teams can score, Kansas City's scoring defense is ranked 28th. They give up an average of 33 points a game, while the Chargers give up an average of 18. Yet it's the Chargers who are the dogs.
Big dogs, too. I mean, this is, I was able to get a 7 very early in the week. You're not going to find any 7s out there now. I think this could close at 6. It's still kind of hovering in that 6.5 range, but I think some of the buzz on Kansas City, some of that luster from Patrick Mahomes is starting to wear off, because I think the rest of the roster isn't as talented. And don't get me wrong, Patrick Mahomes can win you a game, but we're not asking the Chargers to win this game, taking 6.5 points. We're asking Justin Herbert and his teammates to keep things close.
The Dolphins getting 4 in Las Vegas against the Raiders. Tua has fractured ribs. He will not be able to play this week. It's Jacoby Brissett from Miami. And let's be honest, he looked pretty bad this past week. But how big of a difference does this quarterback change really make here?
I don't know. And the line value says that it's going to make a lot. This look-ahead line just a week ago, when it was expected that Tua was going to be the starter and it was expected that the Steelers were going to beat the Raiders, this line was -1. Vegas barely being a favorite. Well, now with Tua out and the Raiders winning at Pittsburgh, this line has moved all the way to +4 for Miami. I'm seeing even 4.5 in some shops. I think that's too much. I don't think Tua to Brissett is worth 3 points. And Vegas, listen, great start by Derek Carr. They've looked phenomenal, but they were expected to be a volatile team this year. All the experts had them being around 500. You're telling me that all of a sudden Derek Carr is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL this year? Good spot to sell high on the Raiders. You get this line through that key number of 3. And Miami's roster's good. Brissett, steady hand, probably upside a little bit lower than Tua, but I think the floor is a little higher because he's a veteran. He's been around the block. He was almost a 500 quarterback a couple years ago with the Colts. I think getting 4 points here, even 4.5, is a really good spot for Miami. I could see them winning this game outright as well.
This is a good point, good time to bring up, I guess, a big picture point here, because, yes, Miami was beaten by 35 points last week by the Bills, but there tends to be, at least early in the season, a little bit of an overcompensation by Vegas, by Joe Public, but not the Sharps. How do you land on the Sharp side when Vegas is overcompensating?
Well, you saw it last week. The 3 most volatile performances in week 1 were the Cardinals over the Titans, the Eagles beating the Falcons, and then the Saints beating the Packers. All 3 of those teams did not cover the spread in week 2. So the line moved, skewed it in those teams' favor, blowout performances. Arizona going on the road, beating Tennessee. Oh my goodness. Philly puts a huge number on Atlanta. The Saints blow out the Packers. All three of those teams did not cover the spread in week 2. So that is kind of the ping pong that you have to take when you're betting the NFL. The look ahead lines get sharper and sharper as the season goes on. If one of the current lines is a field goal or longer different than the look ahead line, even though it's a stinky side with Tua out and with Brissett in, you have to at least take a hard look at that value play on the other side of the market as the NFL lines swing back and forth.
I'm still going to dive into the weeds here on this Dolphins game a little bit and look at the Dolphins against tight ends. The Dolphins so far against tight ends, Jonnu Smith and Dawson Knox, they are middle of the pack in defending the tight ends, but this week they are getting a top-tier tight end in Darren Waller. Does that give you a little bit more pause on what the Dolphins can do?
Yes, that is the way that this game gets blown up. The way that this game gets blown up is like week 16 last year when Darren Waller went crazy against the Dolphins. Now, the good news is Brian Flores has that tape, and he's probably going to be looking at that tape very with a fine-tooth comb with his magnifying glass, trying to figure out a way to stop Darren Waller. Once the game starts, Steve, the in-game chess matches between these teams, very hard for us as handicappers on the outside to predict. But I can tell you, if there's one thing about this Dolphins-Raiders game that scares the crap out of me, it's going to be Darren Waller on the other side.
Maybe you might want to prop that one to kind of
there you go. That's a good way to hedge it a little bit.
You kind of balance it with the prop. All right, the 49ers. 3.5-point home favorites to Green Bay after blowing out the Lions on Monday night in the second half. Are you confident the Pack is back?
I think their offense is going to be fine. And I think they are going to be in a lot of games this year because of Aaron Rodgers. The issue that I see with Green Bay is their defense. A short week. It wasn't a very physical game against the Lions, but it's still a short week, and you're still going out to San Francisco where when it's been healthy Jimmy G and the Niners, they've really struggled. They played 2 games against them in 2019. The defense got blasted in both. One of them was the NFC title game. The other one was a Sunday. It was either Sunday night or a Monday night game, middle of the season, and it was a 37-point romp. Actually, both games, Packers-Niners 2019, when San Francisco was at their peak, 37 points for San Francisco in both of those games. That's how I see this playing out. Again, Aaron Rodgers is probably going to have his moment. He's going to have some great throws. He had some great throws on Monday night. But I think it's the Niners' offensive line against the Packers' front seven. That's the mismatch here. And I like San Francisco. I'm leaning into my futures bet over 10.5 wins. It's kind of a confirmation bias here, but I do think they get the win. And I don't love the fact that I'm laying the hook. It's 3 at some shops now. You might be able to get 3. Rodgers will be a public dog on Sunday night, so I'm assuming it'll close 3.5, but I do think the Niners win this game.
Okay, playing contrarian again here. San Francisco's running back situation is an absolute mess. How much pressure is that going to put on Jimmy G and Deebo Samuel and Brendan Ayuk to make the passing game compensate for a lack of rushing attack?
A lot. And if there is one position where I'm willing to be a little bit thin at, it's running back, because as you know, these guys, they're like a dime a dozen. It's unfortunate, but the running back position in the NFL has turned into this just, like almost like a meat grinder. And I do think that is a position where the Niners will be thin, but they are. Kyle Shanahan does a really good job of kind of aligning the chessboard. I know Brandon Ayuk fantasy owners might be really frustrated by hearing this, but eventually he is going to have one of those games where you're like, all right, that's why I drafted him. Maybe it's this one because it's a Sunday night game and the running back position is really thin, and maybe Kyle Shanahan puts him in the backfield, moves him around a little bit. But this Niners offense has a ton of weapons, even with their lack of depth at running back. Don't forget about George Kittle. You mentioned Deebo Samuel. They've got ways to push the ball down the field.
All right, finally, you're 2 for 2 so far this year on teasers. Teasers have been the way to. This is where you buy points in your favor, but you must pair it with 2 games. So this really has become your specialty. So we're all ears. Which 2 teams are you eyeing this time? Yeah.
We love the teasers, Steve. I know you guys write teasers all day long. You're out there, you're back in the sports cave, typing up those teases, trying to get the audience to get sucked right in. So here we go. Let's see if we can suck everybody in for another one. All right, the Buffalo Bills defense. Say what you want about Josh Allen. We all know he's great. The Buffalo Bills might have one of the best defenses in the NFL this year, leading the league, fewest yards per play, 3.7 yards per play for that Bills defense. Sean McDermott is an absolute wizard. And they're facing a Washington team. I know they won the game against the Giants. I know they're on long rest. But it's the Washington defense that has been a little bit underwhelming. Surprisingly, they've got Sweat and Young up front. You'd think their defense would be great. They let Daniel Jones had like the best game of his life last Thursday. I'm concerned if Daniel Jones can do that to Washington, what can Josh Allen do? So we're getting the Bills through 7-3 down to -1.5. And how about Cleveland at home facing a rookie quarterback making his first start? Yes, Justin Fields, just like Tua, the ceiling is higher than Andy Dalton on Justin Fields, but the floor is lower. And I think this Cleveland front with Clowney and with Garrett, they're going to kind of, boa constrict Justin Fields, make him stay in the pocket, make him go through his progressions. That's tough on a short week because we didn't know Dalton was going to be the guy out until very recently. And then on the other side of the ball, how about the Bears defense giving up 6 yards per play this season? And the Browns offense has been fantastic running the ball. I think this is a recipe for a good teaser spot. You get both the Bills and the Browns through those key numbers of 7-3. All they have to do is win the game, and hopefully we win our third straight teaser.
Now, I do tend to play contrarian here, but this is a stat that will
absolutely
no, but this was going to absolutely support your theory here because Washington, we all know that this defense was supposed to be top ranked. They have the most penalties in the secondary in the NFL this year. That is not good facing a pass-happy team.
No, and what does Josh Allen do the best?
Yeah.
Keep the play alive, and then the receivers kind of get into playground mode where they'll dart around, freelance a little bit. That holding penalties galore when that happens in the secondary. So that is a very interesting thing to keep an eye on this weekend. 3
DPI, 2 holding penalties in the secondary. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. That's the way he sees his top plays of the week and his teaser of the week. Make sure you check out our other segment on his Jets and Giants plays. For Jared Smith of Pickswise, I'm Steve Overmyer. This is Fanalysis.